Crimea was expected to serve as a secure rear base, like an untouched fortress behind the front lines, providing support for the war from afar. This illusion of strategic strength is now being reduced to ashes at 4 in the morning. The peninsula is not being captured meter by meter. Step by step, substation by substation, they are being taken offline. Those who built these defense systems have spent years protecting the wrong walls. The battle for Crimea has spilled beyond the battlefield, yet almost none of those looking at the map have noticed it. This is the greatest truth. Ukraine has stopped viewing occupied Crimea as a distant target and has begun to see it as an electrical system to be dismantled. Field intelligence reaching us indicates a deliberate campaign is being waged against the transformer stations supplying power to industry in the northern part of the peninsula. 2 of the substations you see here were struck within a single time frame before dawn. Both are located next to chemical plants directly linked to the Russian defense economy. This is not just an attack. It is a method, and this method is working faster than Moscow will admit. To understand why this is working, let's first take a look at what Russia believes. As the occupation intensified and fighting grew more intense, Russian military strategists viewed Crimea as a logistical stronghold. Every weapon to be supplied to the southern front would pass through here. Fuel, ammunition, repair depots, railways, everything imaginable that would determine the course of the war. To implement all these plans, the peninsula needed a power source independent of Ukraine. So they rebuilt the grid. The 220 kilovolt substation next to the Crimean Titan plant once received electricity from mainland power sources via the line coming from Kakhovka. After the occupation, Russian engineers eliminated this dependency, integrated it into their own grid, and modernized it. Additionally, a second power line was needed, so they added it and connected it to the 330 kilovolt substation in Jankoy. This way, if one line failed, the other would have enough capacity to handle the load with ease. Yes, it looks like such solid engineering, doesn't it? The redundancy is a very clever move. Should a failure occur, the problem is easily resolved by the other system kicking in without relying on a single point of failure. Russian air defense systems were protecting the skies over the main bases, ports and airports. The northern outpost was located far from the recognized front line, behind layers of radar and missile batteries. Even a junior commander would have considered this area safe. To say the error was in the logic would not be accurate. The error lay in where the logic ended. They armored all the materials they thought would be targeted, while paying little attention to the quiet industrial centers, merely keeping them under surveillance. This backup system creates a protective shield against accidents. However, we cannot say it was very effective against an enemy who decided to strike these supply lines simultaneously, something not accounted for in the plan. Ukraine analyzed this map, but it reached a different conclusion. The front was at the height of the battle and was the least decisive. The real site of the invasion was the rear front, and this front was powered by electricity. Ukraine realized that the Russian strategists who devised this plan were no longer paying much attention to this front. The substations supplying power to the chemical plants in and around Armyansk were fixed, mapped, and extremely difficult to relocate. These transformers were not the kind you could simply pull off the shelf. They were specially manufactured, and since production was slow, procuring them quickly was nearly impossible. Even if you destroyed one, you wouldn't just cause a minor disruption. You would open a wound that could take months, perhaps even years, to heal. Our sources in the region confirmed that the attack was planned with the patience of a steel will. Of course, it wasn't just our sources. Many reliable sources share this view. This was not a drone hurled at a city in a fit of rage. The attack packages targeted specific power plants, the points where the greatest load passes through the fewest components. Open-source thermal monitoring, a satellite heat detection system visible even to civilians, identified the traces after the incident. Temperature spikes at numerous substations, fires in places where they shouldn't be. Timing was the most critical factor here. Ukraine struck in the hours before dawn, when air defense crews were least on alert, and a power outage would have the greatest demoralizing effect. Power in the affected area was cut off for about 90 minutes in the dark, and the outage ended before the fire was reported. Before anyone could figure out what was happening, the damage had already penetrated deep into the transformers. This is precisely what should concern Moscow. Not the scale of the attack, but the sensitivity of the choice behind it. This decision was made before a single drone had even taken off. The target was predetermined. The weapon was a long-range, one-way attack drone. Can you grasp what this means? Because it explains everything that happened afterward. It's not a cruise missile, nor is it a fighter jet. It's a simple, propeller-driven, slow-moving aircraft built on a basic concept. Fly high, fly low, and precisely place a small warhead exactly where it will do the most damage. It is satellite-guided and has an inertial backup system, meaning it maintains its course even if signals around it are jammed. It doesn't require a runway. It doesn't need a pilot in the cockpit. It needs a set of coordinates and a clear enough path to pass through radar. Northern Crimea provided that path. The isthmus is the part of the peninsula closest to Ukrainian-controlled territory. This means the flight is short. The UAV didn't have to break through the entire air defense network. It just needed to slip through a single gap in the network, the one where attention was least focused. Then the chain of events began. The attack reached the transformer station next to the bromine plant and the Crimean Titan facility almost simultaneously. At midnight, the power in the area went out for about 90 minutes. The lights had already gone out. Around 4 a.m. a fire was detected on the site. The power outage happened first. Only the flames confirmed it. Now compare the numbers with the engineering. To ensure a single strike wouldn't take it out, Russia had provided a second feed to that 220 kilovolt node from the 330 kilovolt station in Jankoy. That doesn't matter. When the transformers themselves are damaged, the backup line has nothing left to supply. The same thing happened a few days ago in occupied Luhansk. There, an attack took out a 500 megavolt amp distribution center serving a metal factory. The regions are different, but the logic is the same. If you strike a component that cannot be backed up, redundancy becomes nothing more than a line on a diagram that no longer holds any meaning. When you step back from the two substations, the nature of the war becomes clearer. Crimea is no longer an untouchable rear base. It is a system with exposed points, and each must now be defended as if the front line were passing right through it. This is a problem Russia cannot solve with more missile batteries. Because there isn't an air defense system capable of covering every transformer on the peninsula. The occupation is still ongoing. The ports are operational. The bases are still standing. However, the power source keeping all of this running has become a point of contention. And this fortress, now forced to ration its own electricity, is no longer a fortress. All calculations have changed. Once calculations change, there is no going back. Transformer stations cannot be rebuilt overnight, and the next target on that list has already been selected. When the power grid behind Crimea is plunged into darkness again, you'll want to understand this before the rest of the internet even notices. Subscribe, turn on notifications. This war is being tracked on the ground by our fearless teams in places where no one else is filming, and we're bringing it to you. Our struggle will continue with determination. Let's move on to our next report.